Thank you, Chairman. Gentlemen, thank you very much for being here. We look forward to working with you as we do our next WRDA bill. And although this is not always a bipartisan committee in the area of interest to you, it is a bipartisan committee, and I hope you take advantage of that fact. One of the predicaments that coastal states like mine face is the sea level rising along our shores. NOAA has recently increased its predictions for global sea level rise, and in certain areas, particularly in my state, because of the way the ocean flows and works, that actually gets amplified a little bit further. Let me ask you first if the Army Corps has any quarrel or dispute with those NOAA sea level rise projections.
Sir, I'm not sure that I am smart enough to know on how they apply to Rhode Island right now. I don't think fundamentally we have.
Well, we'll take care of that for you. We have got very good people working on it.
And sir, I'll ask the New England district as well, so that we can take a look. I know you're specifically concerned about.
Do you have any quarrel or dispute with the NOAA general sea level rise findings that they have proposed?
No, sir.
So you will be taking that information into account in your planning of coastal projects?
I think we take that along with any other technical information that's out there, sir. That's our expectation, is to make sure we're using the best science available.
And particularly where you're dealing with long-lived projects, it's important, is it not, to understand the conditions that those projects will be facing all the way through their useful life and not just at the point of completion of the construction.
Fox Point's a great example of that, sir.
Yes, we're probably going to have to rebuild all that at some point fairly soon, and we have people in Rhode Island starting to look at how we wall off the city of Providence from much heightened storms. We have an additional problem, which is that the FEMA projections for coastal flooding have over and over been proved very badly wrong. In Houston and in Florida, they just had some pretty harsh experience of what the flooding actually looked like compared to what FEMA maps had predicted. In Rhode Island, we have very good work that has been done at the local level looking into how FEMA got its maps done, with huge anomalies like multi-foot discrepancies on either side of one of the transects that gets done, which is obviously impossible in nature, and yet was obviously satisfying to the contractors who did this work for FEMA. So I think we have two problems. One, as members of Congress, we need to make sure that FEMA's mapping gets up to speed and that communities are not being asked to rely on false information and bad mapping estimates. But the second thing is we have you to work with, and to the extent that you in your projections are relying on those same FEMA maps and not trying to improve or supplement them, your work faces the same problem that we face. How are you addressing this problem of FEMA's erroneous coastal flood mapping?
Sir, I probably don't have a good answer for that, on the fact that I don't think we lean just on FEMA. I think we look at the rest of that science that's out there. NOAA is another very, very reliable source. I don't think we are 100% reliable on FEMA. We take that information, and obviously there's going to be different interpretations of it. But if you need to, I'll certainly come back and give you a better answer specifically with Rhode Island. But right now, I think when it goes back to, you've got two things you address. One is future projects we've got to look at. How do we make sure we wrap sea level rise and climate change into that? And then the other one, existing infrastructure. That barrier is 1958 barrier. So a lot's changed in the last 50 years. How do we make sure we're...
to be adequate is not adequate.
And then is there a modification we can make? Do we need to figure out how to study it to be able to, but you're right on the point where you've got to be able to figure the requirement and the risk before we can start putting an engineering solution in.
I'm down to 30 seconds, so let me ask my last question, which is that in your FY18 budget, the Army Corps of Engineers designates $1.32 billion for what the Army Corps describes as inland projects. And the FY18 budget defines $46 million in proposed expenditure for what it defines as coastal projects. That's a 30-to-1 ratio favoring inland projects over coastal projects. Should that be the case? And particularly should that be the case in the light of the dramatic changes that coastal states are seeing?
Yeah, Senator, I'll take that question.
Because we're on the losing end of 30-to-1 in Rhode Island.
Right. I understand that. I appreciate the concern. The budget amount, FY18 budget amount, is appropriate given the President's fiscal priorities and the Corps of Engineers' civil works responsibilities, and the need to reduce the federal deficit as well. But I appreciate the concern. I will certainly look into that discrepancy between inland versus coastal, and look forward to working with you in this committee further on that and what the rationale behind that might be.
Thank you. 30-to-1 seems like a lot, particularly given what's happening along our coasts. Thank you, sir.